Hi guys, this is Tablet-News.com and I'm here with the Chuwi V8 Plus tablet for a full review. This is an affordable 8-inch Windows 10 tablet, and keep in mind we already reviewed the Chuwi V8 dual boot version. This is the upgraded version that changes some specs and brings Windows 10 on board. The product is priced at $89 on gearbest.com, and usually you can also find flash sales for the device and find it below $80, which is also kind of cool. Now it's time to discuss the design first. So this model has a plastic chassis, as you can well see here, with an X pattern at the back, and there are some metal insertions on the side. From what I've heard, they're made of steel, but I cannot guarantee it. We got one on the left and one on the right. Measures 9.3 millimeters in thickness and weighs 350 grams. It's 40 grams heavier than the Chuwi V8, but 30 grams lighter than the Asus VivoTab Note 8. By the way, it's also 1.7 millimeters slimmer than the Asus tablet I just mentioned. It feels a bit heavy in the hand for an 8-incher, but it's pretty well built in that it doesn't seem to creak anywhere. So I would have to say that, considering the price tag, considering the diagonal size and things like that, this model has pretty okay bezels for the screen. Now let's try to unlock it if possible. As you'll see throughout the review, it has its bugs, and let's not see the pin. Here we go. As I said before, it has its bugs here and there, and I was talking about the design. We have okay bezels and pretty comfy buttons right here on this side at the top, but sadly the Windows button that you can see right here will sometimes refuse to function. Right now it's working, but sometimes it simply doesn't. This slate has okay grip, and it's a reasonable design for a product that costs below $100. Now on the hardware side, we got an 8-inch screen, an IPS LCD with 1280 over 800 pixel resolution, and I have to mention that the players you can see here sometimes will not exactly handle the content perfectly, so I had to resort to VLC player instead of the standard one from Windows, because it simply wouldn't open up my files every once in a while. So trying to make it run in order to test the screen quality. Here we go, now we can watch a video, so it's time to open up the file and check out this test video we got right here. And now let's talk about the screen. So obviously we have low brightness, as you can well see in the camera. We have poor contrast, the colors are pretty much okay, and view angles are theoretically good. Practically the brightness affects them. And I have to mention that the pixels of the screen are of the RGB stripe variety, and we also measured the brightness of the same screen and got up to 185 lux approximately, which is very poor. At least we beat the Chuwi V8 that reached 159 lux. So overall the screen is underwhelming, and I recommend you use it only indoors, because as you can see it has low brightness, contrast is not good, doesn't behave well in the sunlight, and has some media player bugs. Now the processor inside this slate, well, it's an Intel Cherry Trail. It's the Intel Atom X5, a quad-core CPU clocked at 1.84 GHz with 14 nanometer technology. The GPU is the Intel HD Graphics Generation 8, and we also get 2 GB of RAM, 32 GB of storage, and a microSD card slot with support for up to 64 GB extra. There's some lag here and there that we encountered. For example, you saw it before when we tried to run a video, but games somehow ran pretty much fine. So in spite of the lag in the interface, titles like Riptide GP2 or Overkill 3 ran okay, even though even Riptide got the random quit and random crash on me. But the graphics look pretty much okay, provided you're ready to play indoors, not outdoors, because the screen has very low brightness. So that's what the gaming experience is like on this 8-inch Windows 10 tablet priced below $100. Okay, now let's talk about the other aspects. Since we're talking about performance, we're also talking about the benchmarks, and let's have a go at some of them here. And in case you're curious, we did a few benchmarks and found out that as far as the graphics are concerned, we surpassed the Xiaomi Mi Pad 2 in the graphical benchmark, for example in GFX Bench, and also the iPad mini Retina. Somehow we also surpassed that in the same benchmark. We also did 3D Mark, we also did Browser Mark and SunSpider, and we're waiting for them to load right now. Here we are. This is the result in Ice Storm, 12,000 points. This is the PC benchmark, where strangely we had a very small write speed. Usually the write speed is two times higher on the previous devices we tested, so that's not okay. Other results, well, this one here, and in Browser Mark pretty low score, while in SunSpider there was a pleasant surprise because the score was high, and by high I mean the lower the better, 400 ms. So that's pretty much it. And as I said before, I was surprised to see that in the graphical area the tablet stands on its own, courtesy of a pretty good GPU that beats the iPad mini Retina and the Xiaomi Mi Pad in a few sections of the GFX Bench benchmark. There was also bad news, and when by bad news I mean overheating. After playing the game Riptide GP2 you saw before for 15 minutes, we got all the way up to 44.7 degrees Celsius. You can see that here, and 44.7 degrees Celsius is overheating, so not good at all. Then it's time to talk about the acoustics. We should be using Groove Music for music playback, but once again, even this one has bugs and doesn't always work as we want it to. In theory we should be hearing music, in practice sometimes it just doesn't work. This time it does. So some conclusions about the music experience here. The volume is quite low, there's no bass, and generally we're not impressed by it, so the speaker at the back does not impress. And we also have a decibel meter test to show you. I have to say that this device scored below 80 decibels, and anything below 80 decibels is not exactly worth considering. We scored 73.5 decibels at the front, 75.9 decibels at the back. This means we beat the Chuwi V8, keep that in mind, at least we surpassed the predecessor. Here we go, 73.5 decibels here and 75.9 decibels here, beating the Chuwi V8 but not beating any other models we tested recently. Now as far as the camera goes, of course the camera is pretty much a gimmick here on this device. Nobody expects anything from a 2 megapixel shooter at the back, 2 megapixel shooter at the front. However, even though nobody expects anything, we have quite a few options. We got white balance, ISO, exposure, and a few more options. And believe it or not, we also have settings here like 60:9 aspect ratio and the option to record video in 720p at 30 frames per second. But the quality is very modest, it's not even worth it to try and take one shot because it's very blurry and the colors are totally unrealistic. Some people may want to use this front camera for Skype, but that's it. Now as far as the web browser is concerned, we're using Edge, and let's access Tablet-News.com. Here we go. And as usual, Edge is very fast, provided we don't press anything wrong. Okay, trying to get rid of the keyboard. Here we go. This is the website, Tablet-News.com, works pretty fine, and confirming some of the qualities of the browser was the SunSpider test I showed you before with an excellent result, while Browser Mark didn't have an excellent result, sadly. The keyboard is quite comfy, the one you saw before, the virtual one, but as usual, you should be using a physical one because it's better. Now, if you want to talk about the connectivity, well, this tablet stands out because it has an USB Type-C port right here. Next to it there's micro HDMI 1.4. We also have Wi-Fi BGN, only in the 2.5 GHz band, doesn't support 5 GHz band sadly. There's Bluetooth 4.0 and there's no 3G or LTE functionality. You should know that before you want to perform any special activities on this device that are related to cellular connectivity. Now as far as the battery goes, well, we got a 4000 mAh unit battery here, and on paper it should provide us with about let's say 3 hours of video, and guess what, that's exactly what we got here. We got 3 hours and 17 minutes of HD video playback, which is certainly underwhelming, and the charger is a 5-volt 2 ampere unit, and other than that I have to say that this is actually inferior to its predecessor. So the Chuwi V8 scored 5 hours and 58 minutes and we only scored 3 hours and 17 minutes, so unimpressive battery, that's for sure. The charging takes 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is just okay and a bit better, 30 minutes better than the Chuwi V8. Now for those not exactly familiar with what we're doing with here, this is the Chuwi V8 Plus. It runs Windows 10 on an 8-inch screen, and this means we're getting this action center here with notifications and these quick settings like tablet mode, rotation lock, there's a battery saver option, brightness, airplane mode and quiet hours, as well as VPN. And you can alternate between modes. This is basically the desktop mode where you can install your exe files, play with folders, copy stuff, rename, use folders, and now the start button has become your area with tiles. It has expanded, includes now tiles, app list, recently added, file explorer, settings, power, and if you keep it pressed you'll see your main options, basically a task manager, computer management, disk management, system, event viewer and more things like that. We have the taskbar here and we can alternate between multiple desktops like this. You can create 2 desktops, one with several apps and shortcuts open, another one with other apps and shortcuts available. And then you can go to the tile mode if you have nostalgia for Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. You can turn to this mode, which is basically useless now because nobody fancies it anymore, and sometimes some of the tiles are not responsive, sadly. Okay, other things worth mentioning, well, we got resizable windows. You can use them in full screen, and you can press X to close up an app, X in the corner if need be, and there is no more charms bar. And now let's talk about the apps we have available here. You can see that now there is a back button here which you can press, and as far as the app list goes, well, we got 3D Builder, Calculator, Calendar, Camera, got Skype and Excel, Finance, we have Maps, we have the Store, we have the Mail, Weather, Solitaire even, there's Office, OneNote. So basically we counted them all and got up to around 40 apps, which is pretty close to bloatware definition. Some of the apps won't open, as I mentioned before, because I said that this tablet has quite a few bugs that usually have to do with lag and with the lack of speed when opening up apps. At least there's OneDrive, there's Skype and there's Office, so problem solved if you want productivity. Now it's time to end this review with some verdicts about this tablet that has quite a few bugs that didn't exactly impress us. Of course, there are also some pros: very low price, pretty solid build, it runs games like Riptide and Overkill 3, and it's okay, it functions pretty much okay when the apps don't shut down on you. So if you want Office, for example, it can do the trick. The GPU benchmark was good and the browser is quite fast, plus we have the HDMI port, that's always a plus. So those are the plus side things. There are also the cons. We got here a model that overheats, it has lag, it has bugs, has low brightness and low volume, the battery is quite poor, it doesn't have modern connectivity options and no 5 GHz Wi-Fi support, so not much to say about it. Except for the fact it costs $89 at Gearbest.com. It's called the Chuwi V8 Plus. I do not feel it's better than the Chuwi V8. In some areas the Chuwi V8 was better. The design and the ability to run games remain its only good things, but the audio, display and battery are mediocre, plus there are bugs, as I mentioned before. So this is it from Tablet-News.com. This was the presentation of the Chuwi V8 Plus. I recommend you save your money, maybe add a few more bucks and get a tablet that at least doesn't have bugs. This is it from us, bye bye.